Evening and welcome to Bernathen College. I'm going to confess before we start that I'm going to be fulfilling a young man's fantasy that I had many years ago. Next month, or later this month actually, is Academy Awards season, and I used to live in Los Angeles for many years. And if you've lived in LA, you know one thing about Academy Awards night, which is the whole city stops and goes to parties because movies are everything out there. And somehow I had this dream someday that I get to introduce some big Hollywood hotshot. And it took me only 50 years, but here I am. So I want to thank Chris in advance for giving me that wonderful experience. But on a serious side, we're so pleased to have Chris join us tonight. He is a producer and co-founder of Armory Films, a film and finance and production company that creates, develops, produces, and finances high-concept and commercially viable content. With the ability to finance projects from initial creative inception through production and then to release, Armory has amassed an impressive slate of films and casts that have received many prestigious honors. Under his banner, under the Armory Films banner, Chris has recently wrapped the production on Charlie Day's directional debut, El Tonto, starring Day, Kate Beckinsale, Jason Sudeikis, John Malkovich, Edie Falco, Jillian Bell, Ken Jeong, Adrian Brody, Ray Liotta, and Travis Filmo. Wow, that's really quite a group. He has also produced Joe Panena's Arctic, starring Mads Mikkelsen, which made its world premiere at the 2018 Cannes Film Festival, where it was acquired by Becker Street for North American distribution. He has also produced and financed films lauded such as Medbound, starring Carey Mulligan and Garrett Hedlund, which rose to critical success since its premiere at the Sundance Film Festival in 2017. After being acquired by Netflix, the film went on to receive a record-breaking 4 Academy Award nominations, making the film a milestone in Netflix history in the awards race. So, we want to welcome Chris here tonight. He attended Bernathen College for 2 years and then went on to Villanova, where he got his undergraduate degree, and then went on at Villanova to receive his law degree. He then went on and moved shortly thereafter to Los Angeles, where he began his career in the business, working in the business affairs department at United Talent Agency, and the rest is history. So please join me in welcoming Chris Lemole.
Tonight, can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Good evening. My name is Christopher Lemole. I'm an independent film producer, and tonight I'm going to talk about the journey a movie takes from the script to the screen. I'm also going to talk about the role of a producer within the process and highlight what a producer actually does during the life cycle of the film. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I know he just spoke to that, but I'll just fill in a little more detail. I grew up locally, about a mile down the road from here. I attended the elementary school and then transferred to Chestnut Hill Academy in 8th grade. I went to Bernathen College for 2 years and then transferred to Villanova University, where I graduated cum laude with a BA in history and a minor in political science. After that, I got my JD from the Villanova School of Law. I worked for the Osplin Tree Company in the general counsel's office, and then I decided to move out to Los Angeles and jump into the entertainment business. I had no idea where to start and had no real understanding in what capacity I wanted to be involved, but I knew it's where I wanted to end up. A family friend suggested that because I had a law degree, I should work in the business affairs office of a talent agency. Talent agencies are a great place to start in the business. It's like boot camp for the entertainment world. It's very tough. You're thrown right into the fire, and it tests you and helps you figure out if this is really what you want to do with your life. Many people wash out and they leave the business for good. Others decide to move into different aspects of the industry. This was my journey. I spent 3 years in the business affairs department at the United Talent Agency, where I learned how things worked and how deals were made. It was here I began to understand the operations and functions of the industry and began questioning my place within it. After closing the door on many different positions within the biz, I decided that producing was what I wanted to do. I've always loved telling stories. They are common experiences that link us together. Film is a medium that joins the human experience, where we can relate to one another and share similar emotions. Conversely, film can expose the audience to new ideas, question their current way of thinking, and challenge them to see things from a different perspective. Movies are fantastic vehicles for doing this. Producing allowed me to find the stories that excited me and figure out the most impactful way to tell them. I also liked the freedom the position provided and the fact that I was in charge of the stories I was going to tell. I was able to decide what projects I was going to work on and with whom. I started with a movie called From the Head, written and directed by my brother-in-law, George Griffith. It's a great story about the life of a bathroom attendant in a gentleman's club in New York City. The gritty tale deals with issues of getting stuck in a rut, not living up to one's potential, and ultimately questioning what this means. The fear of failure keeps the main character from growing and moving on to the next level. Yet he knows this inaction is a self-fulfilling prophecy that will ultimately leave him unsatisfied and unhappy. Even though this was my first film, the issues it dealt with and the questions it brought up truly excited me. I found a job that I really enjoyed, something I was truly passionate about. With my first film under my belt, I went on to produce 5 other films. This was a very interesting time for me. I was traveling around the world, applying my skills, and learning as much as I can. I believe everything is a teachable moment. In this business, you need to learn from your mistakes quickly, or the next mistake can put you out of business. Each film was another rung on the ladder, another challenge accepted and accomplished. I wasn't just a guy who had produced a movie or two. I'd actually become a producer. The next step was obvious. I needed to start a company, plant a flag on the map, and create an identity within the business. In 2013, I co-founded Armory Films with Tim Zajaros. We have just wrapped our 9th movie, El Tonto, written, directed, and starring Charlie Day of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And we are selling the Peanut Butter Falcon with Shia LaBeouf and Dakota Johnson at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin, Texas next month. This job has tested me immensely. In those 6 short years that have seemed like a lifetime to me, there have been spectacular highs and soul-crushing lows. From Academy Award nominations to sleepless nights, wondering if I'd made the right choice in my career path. It comes with the territory. It's as stressful as it is rewarding. I've traveled all over the world making and selling movies. I've made amazing memories while creating some epic stories of my own. I've talked about the Eagle-Cowboy rivalry with Thomas Hayden Church, talked politics and art with Shia LaBeouf, discussed the importance of raising assertive and confident children with Ray Liotta, and I actually ended up in a wrestling match with Mads Mikkelsen on the floor of an Icelandic bar after I beat him in a game of pool. That's a true story. I've met some fantastic people along the way and expanded my worldview while doing so. It's a crazy business, and I hope to give you a little insight into it tonight. This next picture is on the set of Mom and Dad that we shot with Selma Blair, and that's Nick Cage. We blew him through a door, and that's why he's looking very dark and ash-colored, because we blew him up. We shot this movie in Louisville, Kentucky. I believe it was the summer of 2016. So what does an independent producer do? I get asked this question all the time, and there are many different answers. For years, my parents weren't even sure if this was a real job. They thought it was some kind of hoax and some way to get me out in LA so I could go surf. Well, the truth of the matter is some producers do more than others. Some are limited to finance, to casting, to setting up the project. Others provide creative input and shape the artistic capacity of the film. For me and my business partner, when asked what we do, the answer is simple. It's everything. We hire the director. We attach talent. We come up with a budget. We figure out where to shoot. We obtain financing. We hire the crew. We're on set every day. We oversee post-production. And finally, we sell the film and deliver it to the distributor. Tonight, we'll use this definition of a producer, the sheriff of the town, on whose shoulders the ultimate responsibility of the project rests. On the most basic of levels, the producer is the boss. He decides which projects get made, for how much, and with whom. Now, I want to discuss the different types of producers. You can see here, there's at the top, it goes producer, executive producer, co-producer, and onwards. And this just goes, there's different ways to get these credits, and I want to go through how that process is started. So not all producers are created equal. Some bring different skill sets to the table, and others bring connections to talent. Still others bring money, and some, they bring nothing. Sometimes they just come with a project. So here's an extremely simple scenario for the purpose of illustration. As we all know, everything is negotiable. Producers are able to negotiate their credits based on the value they bring to the film. Sometimes the value is apparent, other times not so much. So let's say a producer wants to get Tom Cruise in his movie. Tom's manager is a friend and says he'll give him the script, but if Tom comes on, then he, the manager, needs to be made a producer. In another example, an individual might bring financing to the film, and he'll get a producer credit for that. If he brings a smaller amount of financing than someone else, he'll get an executive producer credit. It's extremely hard to put together an independent film. There are a lot of parties that contribute, and that's why you'll see so many producer credits on these movies. It takes a lot of heavy lifting and many different people. The lead producer must cobble together this team in order to make the project work. It's just the nature of independent film. And I'd like to just briefly address this for everybody here. The difference between studio films and independent films. Studio films operate within the world of the studio system, whereas independent films operate outside the studio's sales outlet. So studios will finance and distribute movies. They already have distribution set up for the film. This allows them the freedom to discover new talent and break new actors. Independent producers, such as myself, we raise money for the film and then must seek distribution once it's completed. We hedge our bets by using notable talent that we think has value to both the studios for distribution and audiences for box office. We need to make the best possible film while convincing distributors to pick it up and put it out in the world. I want to walk you through an example of how an independent film gets made so you can have a better understanding. In this example, we'll start with a script. We'll look briefly at the different stages of production, and then I'll get into how a movie is sold and ultimately ends up with the distributor. So this is the cover page of the script of Mudbound. It was actually a wrap gift. It's been signed by the entire cast. It hangs on my wall in my office. I'm very proud of this cover page. But the whole process starts with the script. Without the script, there's no movie, there's no nothing. It's just a bunch of conversations, and you need a script to make a movie. So first, we have to find the script. My business partner and I read all the time. Scripts are sent by friends, agents, talent, directors. They're even sent by next-door neighbors. They come from everywhere. And not all scripts are good. Some are okay, and some are terrible. Only a few are good enough to get made. So we hire creative executives that read and do coverage for us. If it makes it through them, it comes to us. My partner and I will discuss the ones we like and see if it's something we want to do. But then you get one that's great. It either made you laugh or cry or both. And you say to yourself, I have to make this movie. And that's where the fun starts. The development is the earliest stage of the project. It's where producers begin to put together the pieces of the puzzle and see if the script can actually be made into a movie. This is where the majority of scripts die, unfortunately. And there are many reasons for this. It could be one or a variety of the following. The producer couldn't attach a director or talent or financing, or after financing was attached, it fell out, or it was never real in the first place. Development is where you find out if the plane can fly. Some people are in development for a while, others longer, and some, they never get out of it. It becomes their purgatory. There are many questions a producer must ask when putting together the roadmap for a film. The answers to these questions will ultimately dictate whether or not the film gets made. Examples of these questions are, what's the budget? What's the cost below the line? What's the cost above the line? What talent brings the most value to my film? Where do I shoot this? Are there any tax incentives or soft money I can use? What am I paying myself? What can I sell it for? A producer must always be responsible to his investors and make the film for the right price. Too many times we see movies made for budgets that are too high. Even if the film is a success, there's really no chance for it to recoup its money. This needs to be taken into account when coming up with the final budget. This is a picture of my buddy and director Charlie Day, and that is on the set of El Tonto, which we just wrapped in December. So the next piece of the puzzle is selecting a director for the film, and this is not an easy task. The producer needs to match a director with a script. In this case, Charlie wrote it, so he was obviously part of the package. But when a director isn't attached, there are a number of questions that need to be answered. They are, who's right for the tone of the film and matches up with the project? Can they cast? Are they hard to work with or terrible people? The director's ability to cast is probably the most important. Even if your project is well capitalized, it'll be very hard to attach quality talent with a no-name or first-time director. That being said, we've been able to do this a couple times with great actors, but it's an uphill battle, and you have to convince the talent and the agent of the talent that the director is up for the job. In most cases, when you're able to do that, the script is amazing, and the director either wrote it or he comes with the project. Agents are very protective of their clients, and they will not put them in situations that could harm their careers. Selecting the right director is a huge factor in whether the film will move forward or stall out. You want a director that's right for the project. When we look at these directors, we want to match them with the project and share the same creative vision. This is also on the set of El Tonto. It's Charlie and Jason Sudeikis and Jason Bateman. So once we've got a director locked in, the next step is attaching talent. Who's right for the role? Who brings the most value? The answer to all these questions could be Bradley Cooper, but are you really going to get him to make your movie? Probably not. With each submission to the talent, time is lost. A lot of times we take shots at these big actors, but you got to make sure that you don't get bogged down in an endless cycle of making offers with no results. One must avoid this at all costs. Waiting for a read and then getting a pass 3 weeks later with the big possibility the actor hasn't even read the script is just a complete waste of time. Now, sometimes you get lucky, and I mean really lucky. The stars align, and you look at the cast that you've put together, and you think, how did we pull this off? We did this on Mudbound. We've been very fortunate to put together great casts with all of our films, but it's the ensembles that I'm especially proud of. Ensemble casts are difficult because you have to assemble a much bigger cast with similar resources. Everyone has to take a haircut in order to put the budget together responsibly. This can only happen if the script is something extraordinary. We were able to do this on Mudbound and the Peanut Butter Falcon and El Tonto. It's a special feeling looking at an amazing ensemble cast and thinking, this is my movie? This is for real? For this example, let's say we have the right actors that satisfy the creative needs and that work for this budget. At this point, the film is greenlit, which means we're going to proceed forward and we're going to make the movie. This is actually, this picture we are talking, this is Thomas Hayden Church. Some of you might remember him as Lowell on Wings. But he's a big Cowboys fan, so I think in this picture we're actually talking about the Eagles and Cowboys rivalry. And you can see I'm not so happy. Now I want to move into the actual movie-making process. I'm going to quickly summarize the pre-production phase and move straight to production, or the actual shooting of the movie. Pre-production is extremely important, and its execution has direct correlation to the success of the film. This is where locations are chosen, where looks are set, costumes are picked, and the logistical nitty-gritty of the schedule is worked over and over until perfected. If you don't get it right in pre-pro, good luck with the rest of the film. This takes us straight into production. Production this is it. This is movie making. This is lights, this is camera, this is action. Production's a crazy time, whether it's 25 days or 55 days. When a producer's in production, he has very little time for anything other than the film. An independent producer is constantly putting out fires, solving upcoming problems, and dealing with deadly surprises that pop up frequently. I like to think that the project is in mortal danger at all times. One step in the wrong direction and you're toast. It's very stressful, but very rewarding at the same time. I like solving problems and being presented with constant challenges. It's just how I'm wired. As you can see, this becomes very time-consuming. Let's look at the average workday in production. It's a 12-hour day with a half an hour for lunch. Most likely, I'm on the phone for an hour or two before I show up to set, and then another hour or two after, depending on what the day is thrown at me. As you can see, I'm starting to run out of hours in the day. Most times I'm on location, far away from my wife and 5 boys, so I can find time to step away from set to FaceTime them and say hello. If it's close enough for me to fly home, I try to come back every other weekend. My wife has given me an away rule, where I'm not allowed to be gone longer than 3 weeks at a time. True story. I think that went out the window when I spent a month and a half in Iceland shooting Arctic with Mads Mikkelsen. 7,500 miles is just too far to be coming back and forth. Incidentally, Arctic was just released on Friday and is only in theaters. If you like survival films, I suggest you guys check it out. It's actually harder for me to make movies in Los Angeles when I'm sleeping in my own bed. If the schedule calls for a 7 p.m. to a 7 a.m. day, I come home just as the kids are getting ready for school. Just because I've been up all night doesn't get me a pass. Many times I find myself driving my boys to school after a night on set. When on location, I'm not available, so a quick phone call to tuck them into bed will suffice. So it's not all bad on set. I'm trying to make it sound worse than it is. There are actually really special moments when meaningful conversations are had and you get to spend some time with the team talking about life and talking about filmmaking. These times are really special, and they become the most memorable moments when reflecting back on past films. I have a couple pictures I just want to walk through here. This is on the set of Peanut Butter Falcon that we shot in Savannah, Georgia. And our lead star here is Zach Gottsigan, and it's me and my buddy, Aaron Scotty, we're there, and he's doing the big final wrestling scene in this movie. And it was a very, very hard shoot, and Zach had to do a ton of stunts, so we're just checking him out and saying hi. This next picture is of me in Iceland. We shot Arctic. We were supposed to shoot it in 30 days, and we ended up only having 19 because the weather was so bad. Every scene's outdoors. We had some very high winds this day, and I thought it would be funny to make it look like they were stronger than they were. And that's Arctic. This next picture is of me and Mads Mikkelsen. This is actually taken right before we wrestled each other to the ground and had our little fight because of the pool game. And this last picture is of me on set. You can't tell by this picture, but it's about a 40-foot drop on the other side of that guardrail. So, sometimes you just got to pass the time on set by taking your life in your own hands. This takes us to post-production, where the film is assembled and put together. The director works with the editor, piecing together shots and assembling the final cut of the movie. Some edits are easy. They're paint-by-number experiences. Everything goes smoothly, and you have your film after a short period of time. Others are more difficult. The director and the editor might not be on the same page, or the director might not even be reading from the same book as the producers. Creative differences can sink the film or make it stronger. Adversity will tear a team apart or galvanize them in their quest to make a fantastic movie. The producer's role is to oversee this process and guide it. It's a very delicate balance. One must listen carefully to the creative voices in the room and do what's right for the film. This tightrope act can be very difficult. If the producer isn't careful, he can lose the director, the editor, and the other producers, and the film is sure to suffer. Once the edit is locked and everyone is happy with the cut, we begin to finalize the film and get it ready to be viewed. There are many steps to this process, and some films will need more care than others. An action movie with CGI spaceships and flying dragons will need far more time in post than, say, a drama that takes place in a room with 3 people. Post needs are different and specific to each film. There's also the question of money. Things can get very expensive in post. If the producer isn't careful and he's not watching the bank account, he can wind up with a huge invoice from one of the post facilities because the director went nuts and added a bunch of shots. I like to say this: get it right in pre-production and you'll get it right in production. It'll cost you 3 times as much to fix it in post. Once the edit's done, the film is color corrected and the sound is mixed. These are extremely important processes that can completely make or break the film. The color process sets the look of the film and makes sure it's uniform throughout. The sound mix perfects the levels from dialogue to sound effects. You don't want super loud footsteps or having a yell sound like a whisper. I won't go further into details, we don't have time, but the color and sound mix are an extremely important part of post that will tank the movie if not done properly. A professional mix is the difference between a real movie and a student film. Okay, so now the film's done, it's ready to be shown to the world. We need to take it to market and sell it to a distributor. And the best place to do this is at a film festival. This is a picture of me at the Sundance Film Festival in 2017. Film festivals are a ton of fun and completely nerve-wracking at the same time. When it's a world premiere and you don't have distribution, everything is riding on the screening. If you already have distro and got good reviews at an earlier festival, it's a victory lap and all the pressure's off. When we screened Mudbound at Sundance in 2017, it was a high-pressure situation. No one had seen the film, and on paper, it was a financially risky endeavor. We really needed to make an exceptional film in order to get out. Fortunately, the director, Dee Reese, and our cast did just that. We premiered to a standing ovation and unbelievable reviews. However, the distributors just weren't biting. We found ourselves a week later with paltry offers and in a bleak situation. The critics loved the film, but the marketplace just wasn't responding. Adam Sandler told the chief content officer of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, he had to see the movie. They watched it in his room in Deer Valley, and the rest is history. Mudbound was the biggest sale at Sundance that year, and we found an incredible partner in Netflix. This past year at Cannes, we were selling Arctic, the movie with Mads Mikkelsen. We didn't have distribution on the film, but the screening for buyers was a day before our premiere, and the press was barred, so there were no reviews. This is a very interesting situation because when we arrived in Cannes, we were already heavily into negotiations with a number of distributors. This is a picture of the team walking up the steps to our premiere. I had just closed the deal via text with Bleecker Street. I'm congratulating my business partner on the way up the steps to my own premiere. It was a very surreal experience. The pressure was off, and we enjoyed the premiere. To cap off the evening, the film received a 10-minute standing ovation. It was a surreal experience. We sell the majority of our films at film festivals. They're fantastic sales vehicles, as well as a great time that brings the industry together. As I mentioned before, we're premiering the Peanut Butter Falcon at South by Southwest Film Festival in March. It's the world premiere of the film. No one has seen it. I really love this movie, and I can't wait to share it with the world. After the Q&A, I have a brief clip to show you about the film, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So I'd like to end the night speaking about how we choose the films we make. Zombievers. When we first started out, we were making horror movies and genre films. I love these movies. I love them. Zombievers was Armory Films' first under its banner and was a crazy horror comedy that wrestles with the age-old question of what to do when attacked by a colony of undead beavers. From there, we moved to a remake of the horror classic Cabin Fever. When starting out, you make what you can. These are super low-budget movies, each under $2 million. As we grew more and more, we were able to take on films with bigger budgets. We were able to delve into topics and issues that were important to us. You have to understand, as a producer, we're with these films for 2 or more years. It became more and more apparent to my partner and me that we should be making films that were special to us and held real meaning. Mudbound is a period piece dealing with race and gender issues in the Deep South after World War II. The script spoke to us. We knew as soon as we finished reading it that we needed to make this movie. And it wasn't an easy choice. On paper, it was very risky. We felt so strongly about the film that we decided to take on that risk. And it worked out. Mudbound received 2 Golden Globe nominations and 4 Academy Award nominations. I want to show you a trailer of the film, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest you check it out on Netflix.
Violence is part and parcel of country life. I learned how to stitch up a bleeding wound, load and fire a shotgun. My hands did these things, but I was never easy in my mind.
Way down in the water.
I held his heartbeat in my hand.
Way down in the hole.
All that time he was gone, I only prayed for him.
Over there, I was a liberator. People lined up in the streets waiting for us.
Sometimes I actually miss it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm coming back from the fire.
You're the one always talking about our own and our own parcel, the only way to get up from under their foot.
Crawling back from the side.
I don't want you working for them.
I won't be working for them. I'll be working for us.
Coming back from the fire.
Went off to fight for my country to come back and finally had and change the bid.
I don't know what they let you do over there, but you in Mississippi now. You use the back door.
Boy, you found trust.
Jamie saw in a different way. And when his eyes were on me, I felt like I was no longer invisible.
I seen you sniffing after him. Maybe Henry is too thick to notice, but I ain't.
You better open your eyes, big brother. You're so busy worrying about yourself and your farm, you can't even see your own wife is miserable.
They work this land all they life.
I used to walking away from the fight. I no more.
This land that never would be theirs.
You don't need to go, Jamie.
I can't stay here.
They worked until they sweated.
You'll be okay.
They sweated until they bled. They bled until they died. Died clawing at the hard, brown back. That would never be theirs.
When I think of the farm, I think of mud. I dreamed in brown.
Way down in the water. Far away from any soul.
The next film, thank you. Thanks. The next film I'd like to discuss is The Peanut Butter Falcon. It's the story of a down-on-his-luck fisherman in North Carolina running from his past. The other lead is a man with Down syndrome who has been placed in a retirement home as a ward of the state. He has no family to care for him, but knows he doesn't belong there. One night, he escapes and meets up with a fisherman. The movie takes us through their wild adventures and is a wonderful buddy road trip story. But looking at it more closely, the movie deals with the serious issue of inclusion and the status of people with special needs within our society. Movies like these are what really attracts me to filmmaking. I enjoy using the vehicle of film and the art of storytelling as a way to discuss complex issues and bring awareness to the audience. Now I want to show you, after we do the Q&A, I've got a video, a little video on the Peanut Butter Falcon that I want to show everybody, but we're going to do the Q&A first, so please stay seated after we do it. Thank you.
Thank you. What it struck me is, as we think of the temperament that is classically sort of artistically creative, and what you've described as the analytical systems thinking that is required for a film to actually come together, is not an easy combination.
No, I mean, just think about it this way. We need the creative side because you can't make a movie without the writers or the directors or the actors. But if you have a bunch of artists running around in control of the, I mean,
that was what I thought you were saying.
I don't know. I don't know it would ever get completed. You know, it'd still be making art. No, I'm joking around when I say that, but. Yeah, I was having a conversation earlier. What's interesting about what I do is I have to walk along the ridge between the world of the creative and the business side of things, and so I appreciate that. I like being creative, and I like also making sure it gets done. But the position is unique in that capacity. Yeah.
You talked about sharing the human experience with both the actors as well as the audience. What's been your most rewarding experience giving back and actually, producing a story in your experience? Yeah.
Well, Mudbound was very special to me. A lot of these films, you kind of become a family with the whole team, from the director down to the crew, and with the cast especially. But Mudbound was special because we all kind of knew we were doing something that was really meaningful and important. I will tell you, this movie, Peanut Butter Falcon, I'm going to show you the clip. It was extremely challenging to make this film, and we took a tremendous risk by having casting one of our lead actors with Down syndrome, and we didn't know if that was going to work. And it just became such an awesome film. I'm so proud of it. I can't wait to show the world. But that was really rewarding because it also kind of shaped my view and kind of questioned my belief systems a little bit, and made me just think about how I operated, just changing subtle things, but being more aware of my reactions and my, just how I go through my daily life. But I would say Mudbound and Peanut Butter Falcon. Now, El Tonto that we made with Charlie Day, I don't know if you guys know It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's hilarious. So that was great because you're constantly laughing, but it wasn't it didn't change my life, so to speak. I think Mudbound and Peanut Butter Falcon really did make me think and reflect on my life. Absolutely.
Chris, what I'm asked to expand on Eric's questions. Could you explain a little bit about the tension between the artistic side and the business side, so to speak, and the decisions you make? For example, where to film, why would you pick a place to film, and could you give us an example of, for example, where you had to cut the cost of something that didn't add to the film that you had a conflict with?
Well, I can't, because I don't want to bring that up. But but that does happen. So what happens is you go through the script, even while you're shooting, you find out that you're running out of money, and do you need this scene? Do you need this dialogue? And so we kind of have to go through and say what scenes really make the film work, what scenes don't, and then you have a creative discussion with the director, and sometimes you got to change things, and the director doesn't like that. But back to your question with where to shoot. So we try to shoot in municipalities that give us soft money or tax incentives, because these margins are extremely thin. Even if you deliver a great film, unless it's a hit, you're probably at best going to break even on these films. So we will go to a lot of people are filming in Atlanta and in Georgia and Louisiana, and that's because there's state tax incentives that they'll give you 20% or 25% of your budget. They'll give you that money. So the interesting dilemma we had on El Tonto was that it makes fun of Hollywood. So it's set in L.A. L.A. is a character in the film. The California tax incentive is kind of a joke because it only goes to the studios. So for independent producers like us, we need to travel and make movies elsewhere. The problem is, how do you make a movie about L.A. in Louisiana? It just doesn't work. So what we did was we were able to get such a great cast and offset that cost. Although we probably lost about $2 million on that, but we were able to up our cast because everybody was sleeping in their own beds working in LA, that we cast up, and it made sense to make that movie there. But we do basically venue shop to go around to see where we can make the movie, get the best deal, because the margins are just it's really tough to make a movie responsibly.
Sorry. I know Mudbound was originally a book. I don't know if any of the other films you've made are, but as a filmmaker, what kind of obligations do you feel you have to stay true to the book versus letting the film sort of create its own version of the story?
So it depends on the project, and the simple answer is none, because it all comes down to what you want to do. And sometimes the director will be like, we'll change this thing. You don't want to take Mudbound and turn it into My Little Pony, right? You don't want to just change it so much that, we bought the rights to the script, blah, blah, blah. At the same time, if you can make the story better, if you can, we work with the writers all the time after the script is optioned or then purchased. You try to be aware of everybody's creative ideas, and you try to make it a team effort. But if it's not going to work, and the studio who's going to distribute the movie, or whoever, the financier for that matter, says, look, I don't want the guy to die at the end, the movie's not getting made without that change. So I would say it's story specific. If it's something I'm really passionate about, then we stick to it. But otherwise, it's a movie.
Hi. You had mentioned earlier that you get so many scripts to review. Is there a particular algorithm or formula you use to decide what to move on, or is it just gut feeling?
It's gut. I mean, a lot of companies, everyone loves analytics, and you have to look at that. What's selling, where things are finding their place within the marketplace, and but we just make films that we really like. It's very frustrating for the talent agencies because they don't know what to send us. And Zombievers and Mudbound and Peanut Butter Falcon are all very different films. So we kind of operate in this schizophrenic space, but it's just what we like making. Excuse me. That being said, there's some movies that I'm not going to make. I mean, they just don't make sense, either financially or for a little company like mine. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, it's based on gut, and especially with these last couple films, with Mudbound, with Arctic, with Peanut Butter Falcon, and Tonto. It was the first time reading the script. We got to make this movie. Yep. Oh.
Thank you. I'm curious about where are your sources of finance for this? Is this equity investors? Like what? Because you're not saying you don't have distribution yet, so you're not saying like,
sure.
Oh, we're going to sell this here and it's going to get us this much money. So just curious, where do you look for finance?
So it depends on the film, depends who the actors are, and depends how commercial the movie is. So and the budget. We will do pure equity films, pure equity investment on films, and there's we'll co-fi with people. There are firms that do this. There are family offices that do this. There are companies that do this. And then on the bigger movies, what we'll do is we will usually have an equity anchor that is in last position. So you can make a $15 million film, $18 million film with $3 million of equity. And we will pre-sell foreign territories to prove them to the bank or the senior lender that those numbers are accurate. And then we'll take out basically a loan for the remainder of that. The third piece of that puzzle is the soft money, the tax incentives. So it's basically a combo of equity, senior debt, and soft money. And then we try not to do this, but sometimes when you need that little bit of money, there's usually a mezz position that you can create that sits subordinate to the senior debt piece. Fortunately, we don't have to do that, or we usually just increase the equity position. But yeah, that's primary. And there, there's a bunch of firms, a bunch of companies, a bunch of individuals that will put up the equity model. But in order to tap into that, because they're in last position, I don't know if any of you guys follow what I'm saying. So the equity sits last. They own the movie, but they are the last to get paid. They're the last ones to get their money back. So there's risk in that if the movie makes a lot of money, that's their money, but they might lose all their money as well. So what we do when we present these investors with the film plan is, here are the actors, here's what the ultimates are, here's what we think it can do, the foreign sales versus the domestic, and you put together a package where you can, show here's the risk threshold on the film.
Can you tell us a little bit about the writer who wrote the script for the Peanut Butter Falcon?
I can. So there's two writers, Mike Schwartz and Tyler Nielsen, and they had a really good friend of theirs. They were doing a bunch of camps with, with the Down Syndrome Foundation, and they became really good friends with this one kid. And he said, "It's my dream." This is about 3 years ago. And he said, "Look, it's my dream to become an actor." And they said, "Look, Zach," this is Zach in our film. You'll see him, in a second. They said, "Zach, they're really not hiring a lot of actors with Down syndrome right now. I'm sorry, but that's how it is." And he said, "Well, I really want to do this." So they got together and they said, "As crazy as this is, let's write a script for Zach. We're going to write a script for him, and then we're going to go promise him that we're going to go try to make this movie." So they did write a script, and Mike was living out of his car while he was doing this, and Tyler was living in a tent in Griffith Park while writing the script for their buddy. And the script was taken to the producers of Little Miss Sunshine, the guys at Bonafide, and they said, "Wow, this is an amazing story. Let's get behind it." They brought it to us, and we all set out, and we made this beautiful film that I love with all my heart, and we're going to sell it next month in Austin. We're very excited about it, but it's one of those movies. It's like Stand By Me or Goonies, or it's not about Down syndrome. It just happens to be one of the characters is in the movie with it, and it's a buddy tale. It's a modern day Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn adventure, and Shia is amazing in it. Dakota's amazing in it. Zach is awesome. It's just a really, really fun film.
Hi, Chris.
Hey.
I think it's great that you followed your passion, first and foremost. But now when you look back and reflect over your career and what you're doing right now, is there any one thing or two things that you believe prepared you for now?
Well, and this isn't a joke. This answer is not a joke at all. My mom's going to laugh. But my nickname in my family is Captain Chaos because, it's like I'll go out and my car's on fire. I don't know why, but my car's got on fire, or my house fell down or whatever. So I'm constantly dealing with chaotic events, and whether they're a function of me putting myself in that position or just I'm Captain Chaos, I don't know. But that, I think, has enabled me with because literally what'll happen is, we're on set. Basically, you look around set, and if everything's going smoothly, you've missed something because nothing's going smoothly, right? There's an actor who went back to see his girlfriend, or the bank lost half your money, or, the police are about to shut you down and you can't shoot on this road anymore. So there's always just stuff going on, and I think the fact that I'm able to adapt quickly and figure out the best possible solution in a short amount of time, I think that's from me just being a Captain Chaos, I would say.
There's a lot of depictions in different media about how Hollywood is, from shows like Entourage or even 30 Rock, which was New York, but still kind of a behind-the-scenes look. How accurate are those depictions? Do you find the general view of it to be true? That it's kind of, actors are high maintenance and there's a lot of interesting things?
I think yes. I mean, you find what you want to find. I'm married. I've got 5 kids. Most of my friends are married with children, and I'm 42 years old, so I choose to hang out with other 42-year-olds. But when you're on a set hanging out with a bunch of 22-year-olds, and you kind of gravitate towards what your group is. But is a question: is it Ferraris and going wild and stuff? Yeah, absolutely. But that's not everywhere. It's a place like everywhere else. But yes. In answer to your question, you can find a lot of trouble if you look for it, and you don't have to look too far.
to expand on that, we've certainly heard a lot recently about Hollywood and the gender issues, and also that it's a very male-dominated field and there are few women directors. And so what is the situation in your firm, and how do you see things going with the independents as compared to the studios?
Sure. So it's a very interesting time. You know, I would say in the past, it wasn't just that you were dealing with despicable people. It's pretty much my understanding that that's just how business was done, and it was acceptable and it was tolerated. And so now we're in this kind of this watershed moment. You know, we support female filmmakers. With Mudbound, we really thought we needed an African-American female filmmaker to tell this story. My old business partner, Cassian Elways, has this whole Horizon Award, which is, you know, putting forth, supporting female filmmakers and everything like that. I think it's good. You do have people like that. I also think that a lot of people are just getting involved because it's the kind of current, it's that new hot way to do it, and you look like a good person if you jump on board. But you know, I don't know where it's going to go. I'm glad it's changing. I'm glad people are shedding light on this and that there's a discussion about it. I don't know where it's going to end up though. What worries me is if you draw attention to a lot of these things and maybe they're not as egregious as some other things, I think you got a lot of injured parties that wouldn't necessarily, the people that were victimized, it doesn't properly show what they went through, and it also, you know, some people are getting falsely accused for minor things that kind of they get dragged into this whole vortex of what's going on, and you know, each case is different, and you know, people need to be able to defend themselves. But it's an interesting time. It's a very interesting time. Any other questions? All right, well, can we kill the live feed? And when we do that, I want to play